right, so it looks like we are live on YouTube. I'm going natively on YouTube here today. Let's get our live going over on X, Rumble, and LinkedIn. Let's get the live going over on Facebook. And we got to make sure LinkedIn is actually working. And we are live on, is the live on Instagram. Live is on Instagram now. We need LinkedIn to catch up and wake up. So make sure LinkedIn is good. Give me 1 second to make sure LinkedIn is good. Let's see. Rumble is good. X is good. I believe YouTube is good. We're good on YouTube. Shout out. Good morning, all the people on YouTube. Good morning over on Rumble. Good morning on Facebook. All right. Now we are live on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you got to do extra steps. You got to put the stream URL and the stream key in. You got to change it every single time. Then when the streaming starts, you got to go back over there and click the button again. So LinkedIn is adding a whole lot of extra work to my workflow, and I'm not appreciative of this. LinkedIn, get your shit together and allow people to just go live straight from the platform or the API. I don't know why they're doing this, but anyway. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to the people over on Instagram, and shout out to the people on TikTok too, even though I am banned from TikTok till next Wednesday. I got banned from TikTok till next Wednesday. That's not a joke. I got banned from TikTok for a week because I violated their community guidelines, but they don't tell you where exactly you violated. Because if I violated it and I know what I did, then I can make sure I don't do it again. But they won't tell me what I did to get banned. So I got banned from TikTok I keep saying banned, but it's technically a suspension. I got suspended from TikTok for a week. So the audience on TikTok will, unfortunately, they will be devoid of this message that I'm going to share here today, but they can watch it on replay later. And maybe I might do the same live again sometime in the future. Say this again. I had 18,000 people watching me on TikTok, and they kicked me off while I had 18,000 people watching me because allegedly I said the wrong thing. So I don't know what I said. But anyway, and I was talking about this election for a month, so I don't know what I specifically said that day. I got an idea, but I'm not sure. So anyway, what we're going to do here today, and we got a lot to get to in who knows how much time I'm going to take here. I usually block off like 2 hours for this, so we'll see how much time we decide to take here today. We are going to talk about why nobody liked Kamala Harris. Nobody liked in past tense. Nobody liked her. I don't know if you need to like her moving forward, because I said this yesterday in my stream. And if you watch my streams all the time, sometimes I'm going to repeat points because certain people don't listen to every single one. And also sometimes people got to hear the same thing more than once. I believe Kamala's political ascension is over. She may return back to Congress, maybe in the Senate or something like that. But as far as ascending politically, she's done. It's a wrap for her for several reasons. I'm going to go over that here today. So let me introduce myself first, and then we'll go straight to this. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. Former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books, done 4 TEDx talks. I created this brand that is called Work on Your Game. Our job over here is to help the ambitious. I want to work with ambitious people who are serious about joining the top 2% in what you do. It can be in the sports world. It can be the professional world. It can be the entrepreneurial world. If you're one of the ambitious, you're one of the people I want to work with. We help you with performance, consistency, and producing results. All that happens at workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's not really the topic here today. We're talking current events. And I found that when I talk current events, it tends to draw more attention, but who knows? It might just be because it's the what do we call this? The political cycle. We'll see what happens 6 months from now, a year from now, when there's no necessarily an election coming up. But let's get into this topic here today. So first of all, on Instagram this morning, I made a post and a gentleman left a comment that I'm going to respond to because his comment actually is a good one for me to start with here. Here's the post that I did on Instagram this morning. If you didn't see the post, you can see it on my Instagram. My Instagram is just at Dre Baldwin. So those of you not following me on Instagram, go do it. Here's what I said in my post. It says, reality for Kamala supporters. First point, little girls do not grow up dreaming of abortions. All right, so this is a reality check for the Kamala supporters. And I'm going to go through each one of these points and explain to you why I put this in my post. First of all, the entire Harris campaign, the foundation of the Kamala Harris campaign, well, they started off with the foundation of all stuff about Donald Trump. And this has been another challenge of the Kamala campaign. the Democrat campaign, the left campaign, the liberal campaign, and the anti-Trumpers. So we put all of them in one group. We're going to put all of them in one basket here. And that's also the people who support it. And there are a lot of people who support it. Some of you are listening to me right now. And there's a gentleman who left a comment on my Instagram post. You have to see this comment. His name is, I believe, Jovon Bell. And I told him I was going to respond to his comment right here in my live, which I'm going to do in a moment after I go through these points. So the foundation of the Kamala campaign was all about Donald Trump. And this has been the issue with people who are Kamala supporters ever since I've been talking about this, is that anytime I start talking about Kamala Harris and her campaign, most of their knee-jerk reactions is to do what? What's the knee-jerk reaction whenever I say something about Kamala? The knee-jerk reaction to the people who are supporters of her is to start talking about Trump. Was exactly what this gentleman, Jovon, did here. He started asking me questions about Trump when my entire post was about Kamala. I didn't say anything about Donald Trump. The entire post was about Kamala Harris. All he's talking about is Donald Trump. This is an issue. And I'm going to explain to you why this is an issue as I go. Actually, look at the title of my live. What's the title of my live stream? The title of this live this morning is Nobody Liked Kamala. And one way you know that nobody likes Kamala is that every time in this entire last month and a half, when I have offered any type of critique or criticism of Kamala Harris, people who support her, their immediate response is to start talking about Donald Trump. They can't defend her because nobody actually likes her. This is the issue. Their entire campaign of Harris was about anti-Trump. That's what they started with. They started with, he has all these convictions. He is a abuser, or what's the word? He's convicted of assault. Be careful with saying that whole phrase. I don't know if I can say it on one of these platforms. He's convicted of assault. SA, y'all know what that is. He is a fraud. He went bankrupt a bunch of times. He tried to overthrow the government. He staged an insurrection. He is going to be a dictator on day one. He's going to ruin the Constitution. Y'all know all the talking points about Kamala Harris, right? And I'm going to answer all questions and comments at the end. But this is fine. Imani S. Jones, I see you on there. I'm going to respond to all comments at the end, but I see your comment popping up. This is the issue, is that every time someone brought up Kamala and offered any critique of her, the immediate response is just start talking about Donald Trump. The reason is because you can't defend the person. You can't defend the person who you are up with. And that's a problem. And we got to do something about that. Well, we already did something about it. People went out and voted. So this is what the Harris campaign did when they, what's the word? They switched. All right. They switched it when it wasn't working to just talk about negative Trump, negative Trump. Their campaign realized, okay, we can't just keep doing that because people are eventually going to ask, well, who are you? You're talking about him. We know about him. He's been around for 3 cycles. Who are you? When she finally decided to start answering the question, they needed a foundation of their campaign. We know the foundation of the Trump campaign, which is make America great again. We're going to restore things to being better for Americans, whatever that means. And he would fill in the gaps or whatever he had to say. The Kamala Harris campaign pivoted to abortion. They pivoted to reproductive freedom, women's right to choose, women's right to their bodies, et cetera, whatever you want to call that. I've already beat this point up many times over the last 2 weeks, but let me say it again. First of all, the average woman lives to 80 years old in the United States of America. 1 in 4 women ever has 1 abortion in their entire lives. That means for every 320 years lived, there's 1 abortion. And they built their whole campaign around this as if it was some everyday thing. That was a bad idea. And little girls do not grow up dreaming of, I want the opportunity to have an abortion. And they based their entire campaign on this, and it failed. And again, whether you agree with the concept or not doesn't matter. What matters is what happens on the scoreboard. I come from the sports world, and in the sports world, the scoreboard tells the story. The scoreboard on November 5th tells the story that campaign concept did not work. It failed. And little girls do not grow up dreaming of abortions because, again, out of every 320 years lived of women's lives, there's only 1 abortion. That's just an absolute fact. And no matter how you feel about it, we can look at the results. Again, this is a results-based business. I told you what I help people do. Perform consistently in results, not feelings, not vibes, not emotions. And this campaign concept foundation did not work. Second point is this, and this is from my Instagram post this morning that I'm saying here, is people who feel like they're struggling do not want a celebrity telling them how to think or what to do. This is another failing concept this is not even a Kamala Harris point. This is a Democratic/leftist point. They've been doing this for years. I recall you want to talk about someone in a court situation, Puff Daddy. Well, I'm a fan of Puff Daddy, the musician, the Puff Daddy. I'm a fan of Puff Daddy. I don't know anything about him off the microphone. I don't know the guy. I never met him. But Puff Daddy was a guy who did, y'all remember the Vote or Die campaign he did? This is in like 2004. It was called Vote or Die. And he had T-shirts printed up and all of that. And he was doing this as a pawn of the Democratic Party to get people to go out and vote. That was in 2004. In 2008, the Democratic Party, because they lost in 2004, George W. Bush got reelected. 2008, they quadrupled down on the celebrity endorsements for Barack Obama. And a lot of people were excited about Barack Obama, including myself. And they got all the rappers, all the entertainers, anyone connected to the Black/urban/hip hop community, whatever you want to call it. All were co-signing Barack Obama, from Jay-Z to Beyonce to Young Jeezy to Puff Daddy to everybody, anybody you can name who was somebody in 2008. They all jumped on the Barack Obama train, and shit, it worked. 2008, and it worked again in 2012. Worked twice. 2016, they tried it again with Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump. The issue is Donald Trump is a different beast than whoever Barack Obama was going against, John McCain and Mitt Romney. And secondly, Hillary Clinton named Barack Obama. So it didn't work as well, even though they tried. They did the same thing. They ran the same playbook, but it didn't work the same way in 2016. In 2020, it was a weird year. We know it was weird based on the virus that was out there. I gotta be careful saying that word. And because all of a sudden, the Democrats all of a sudden pulled in 15 million more votes than they had in any of the previous 4 or 5 elections. And it dropped right back down to the same average number after this election. And I talked about that a lot yesterday. I'll probably do a whole live on that next week when I got my TikTok audience back, when my suspension is over. I'll be talking about all this stuff even more. The problem is people have become hip to this. It was exciting when I saw Jay-Z and Beyonce supporting Barack Obama in 2008, because we hadn't seen things like that before in politics. Now we've seen it. All right, now we're used to it. We saw it already. I saw that already. You can't keep giving me the same thing. So, like, for example, when I was playing basketball, one of my friends, he was a really good ball handler. He showed me how to do the crossover move. He said, you can't do the same crossover over and over against the same opponent, because after they saw you do the move once or twice, they're going to be ready for the move. You can't do the same move over and over again. In boxing, you can't do the same thing over and over again, because your opponent's going to start timing your movements and they're going to knock you out. So this is the same thing that happened with the Democrats, and Kamala Harris has happened to be a victim of this. This wasn't really her fault. She was a victim of this, is that they're still throwing these celebrities out there. Name all the celebrities that supported Kamala Harris in this campaign. You got Beyonce. I didn't hear from Jay-Z, but you got Beyonce and Kelly, who came out dressed like a man in that Houston rally. Y'all see that? Beyonce came out like a woman, and Kelly Rowland came out dressed like a man. There's an argument. There's a case that Kelly Rowland is actually more attractive than Beyonce. Now, Beyonce's more famous, but there's an argument that Kelly Rowland is more attractive than Beyonce. Why they got her dressed like a man? And where the hell is Jay-Z? Ain't Beyonce married to a man? Why did she come out with a woman dressed like a man? That didn't make any sense to me. But anyway, Beyonce and Kelly Rowland. You got Jennifer Lopez. You got Bad Bunny. You got, it's too many. I can't even name all these people. Cardi B, who's sounding stupid as usual. They got her on the stage reading off a phone because the teleprompter wasn't working. So we know she was telling you some bullshit. That was a very fail moment for them, the entire campaign. Who else? What other celebrities? Usher, who said he wasn't going to get into politics. Now he's on stage doing a performance. Oprah Winfrey, who is she was a big fan. She was a big fan and friend of Donald Trump. Donald Trump used to appear on the Oprah show all the time. Now all of a sudden, she just hates what's the word? She just hates Donald Trump, and he's so terrible. And Oprah did multiple events. So she did the sit down with Kamala, which was called an interview, but it wasn't really an interview. What it was basically a PR hit for Kamala Harris. All these celebrities, people got tired of this. We're tired of this. We don't want to hear a celebrity telling us what to do. And especially if you're out there, an everyday person, and you feel like prices are too high, gas is too high, your groceries are too high, you don't like the way the country is going, whether on a social person level or on a financial level or anything like that. If that's how you really feel about your situation, the last thing you want to hear is fucking Jennifer Lopez or fucking Fat Joe getting on the stage and telling you what you're supposed to do because this is the right thing for you. Like, I don't want to hear what you got to say, Fat Joe. If you want to rap and make a song, all right, I will listen to the song. Lean Back, I like that song. All right, Lean Back is on my workout playlist. I will listen to Fat Joe if he wants to rap. Fat Joe, I do not want to hear what the hell you got to say about what's happening in my everyday life if I really feel like I'm struggling to pay my bills. And the Democrats have been running this play since 2004. They did it 04, 08, 12, 16, 20. They did it 5 times. They tried to do it time number 6, and it didn't work this time. And that's not the main reason why they lost. The main reason why they lost is because nobody liked Kamala Harris. That's the title of my live. That's why I'm saying this. Let me tell you the next point in my Instagram post from this morning. Again, I'm just telling you things I said on Instagram this morning. Then I'm going to address this gentleman's comment because I told him that I would. There are more people who live by conservative values than you think. I'm going to take a sip of water before I get into this one. So when I say conservative values, I don't mean that they are necessarily conservatives, like they label themselves conservatives, not necessarily. I don't label myself a conservative, but when people hear me talk, they say, Dre, I see you have some conservative values, and I'm completely fine with that. Having conservative values does not make you a Republican or MAGA or right-leaning or far-right or all these other pejoratives, things they try to use as pejoratives to try to make people look bad. And here's the reason why this is a fail for Kamala and the situation and for the Democrats is that they have made it such in society these days that labeling someone conservative, MAGA, Republican, right-wing, far-right, any of those things, they turn these into pejoratives. They turn them into pejorative, and they've done this successfully. Pejorative is just a word that you use on someone to make it seem like an insult. So do y'all remember during the Biden administration, what happened was Kamala Harris did a video interview on the Comedy Central show for this guy named Charlamagne the God. Y'all know Charlamagne from the Breakfast Club. Charlamagne has that show, or at least he had that show on Comedy Central. Don't know if he has it. And Kamala appeared on the show. And one of the first questions that Charlamagne asked Kamala was, who's running the country right now? Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin? Joe Manchin's one of the Congress people. I believe he's from the state of Virginia. You can fact check me on what state he's from. Doesn't matter. But that was the question. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin running things? Because the news of the day was that Joe Manchin had been, as a Democrat, stepping up and kind of pushing back against things that the Biden administration wanted to do. And it's just gotten to the news that everybody was talking about it. And Kamala's response to what Charlamagne said was, hey, Charlamagne, don't start talking like a Republican. That's what she said. And I'm using that as an example of what's happened in America is that we've turned being anything other than left into a pejorative to the point. And again, this is successful. This has happened successfully to the point that people who are supporters of Trump, MAGA, conservatism, Republicans, etc., these people don't want to step up and say it out loud because you don't want to get attacked. You don't want to be arguing with people on social media. You don't want people leaving negative comments on your posts. You don't want to get a bunch of negative reviews on Facebook. You might get fired from your job. You might get excommunicated from the people around you. You can get all the negative things that can come with being a supporter. And it's an interesting thing. Think about this. Any of you who works in any type of corporate environment or any type of bureaucratic environment, like corporate academia, for example, could you show up to work during the election's over now, but could you have shown up to work with a Harris and Walls, her VP candidate? Could you have showed up there wearing a Kamala Harris hat or a Kamala Harris shirt? Would anything bad happen to you? Of course not. Nothing would happen. Now, let me ask the other question. Could you have shown up to work with a red Donald Trump hat on, a MAGA hat on? What would have happened to you have you done that? You wouldn't even have done it because you know what would have happened. Your coworkers would have given you side eyes. You would have got nasty looks. You would have been told to take the hat off. You might have got fired from your job. Everybody would be against you if you just showed up saying that I support this guy and where half the country has voted for this guy. But the Democratic Party has successfully turned being a conservative, specifically regarding Donald Trump. It's not even just conservative, but they have turned being a supporter of Donald Trump, who half the country voted for 3 times, into some negative thing that you want to hide. You got to hide in a closet when you're a supporter of Donald Trump. That's what they're doing. That's what they did. And here's why that is a problem for the Democratic Party. Because as we saw for the 3rd time in a row, half the country supports this guy. Half the country wants to hear what he has to say. But because of the way they've set things up, those people are so quiet during the campaign season that it seems, if you're only paying attention to social media, that it's going to be a runaway blowout win for whoever the Democrat is. And again, we'll say 2 out of 3 times. We'll get into the 2020 on a different line. I'm going to do a different live on the 2020 election period because people have been asking me about that. I've talked about it, but I'm going to talk fully about it when my suspension on TikTok is lifted. And 3 times, or let's just say twice, half the country, that we call that the silent majority, has stepped up and made it clear, hey, we're supporting this guy. We're just supporting him at the ballot box, not on Instagram, not on TikTok, not on X, not on Facebook. We're just going to support him straight up where it matters, which is on the scoreboard. Scoreboard is what happens at the ballot box. All right, what happens on social media is not the scoreboard. So this is my 3rd point from my social media post. Again, I'm just going through my Instagram posts. I didn't get to the other points. So I'm going to get all of it here today. So there are more people who live by conservative values than you think. People want family. People want their son to be their son, even though he goes to school every day. He's not going to come home one day and decide, well, hey, I know you call me Michael, but I decided that I'm Michelle. All right. People don't want that. It sounds like a thing. It seems like everybody's doing it. Everybody is not doing it. And not everybody wants it to be some codified normal thing in the United States of America. People do not want that. And by the way, I'm going to respond to questions and comments at the end. So if you're leaving a comment while I'm talking, I'll address them all when I'm done. People want conservative values. People want man, woman, child in the household. All right. That's what we want. All right. All these things like what BLM was putting out, we want to, what they said, we want to disrupt the nuclear family and we want to center women and children. But people don't want that shit. All right. And you saw what happened to BLM when they got exposed for that, right? It was on their about page for years, but only when they got all the attention, people started noticing it and calling them out on it. They took it off the page because they knew it made them look bad and they lost all credibility. They should have never had any credibility in the first place, but they lost what little they had when that happened. And it was discovered, Candace Owens doing investigative journalism, that they were giving most of their money to the LGBTQ, whatever you want to call them, their movement. That's where all the money for BLM was going, in case any of you didn't know. It wasn't going to black people. It was going to the LGBTQ. Again, look at the documentary Candace Owens did on them, and she explained this. So the whole point being, this disruption of the nuclear family and conservative values and conservative ways of living, America does not want this. They just openly rejected it in the 2024 election. Next thing, this is from my Instagram post this morning, by the way. My Instagram is @Baldwin. The identity politics /DEI era is ending. If you are eating off of this, if you are eating off the identity politics /DEI era, I suggest you go get as much as you can, scrape up as much as you can from this era because it's coming to a close. So it was at its peak. It was at its peak in the summer of 2020. Y'all remember the summer of 2020? I called it the summer of social justice, where anything and everything that sounded like identity politics /DEI / we got to give handouts to specifically black people, you could get it. You could have ate. If you were doing your thing in 2020, you had your systems and your marketing set up, you could have ate really, really good. You could have been feasting in the summer of 2020. There was a lot of money and opportunity to be gotten if you were the right identity and in the right place with the right message. Absolutely. I did an episode on my show literally explaining this. All right. So even though I'm not a fan of it, it's not, I can't sit here and objectively say it ain't happening. It was happening. It was happening heavy. So 2020, 2021, a little bit into 2022, and it slowly started to die down. And what just happened in the election a couple of days ago was the death knell of identity politics /DEI. So this era is about to come to a close. So if you're dealing already in the budget, you got a problem. You got to pivot and come back to actually providing some real substance. So what exactly do I mean by identity politics and DEI? This is, let's just do this thing for this person or give this person this thing just because of who they are, i.e. because they're female, i.e. because they're gay, i.e. because they're black. All right, that era is coming to a close. Now you got to actually bring some real substance to the table. And I told you what I'm about. My brand is called Work on Your Game for a reason. Because you got to actually have some game. Like, okay, you're a woman, but we're not putting you in this position just because you're a woman. Can you play? Do you have something of value to bring to the table? Do you have some actual substance to add to the conversation? Because if not, I don't care if you're black. You're not coming in this room. You're not getting a seat at this table. You got to actually bring some substance. That's what we're going back to. What we learned on November 5th, a few days ago, was that we got to come back to the substance. Because if identity politics /DEI era was still a thing, Kamala would have won. Because that was her whole campaign was, well, you got to support the black woman. Wasn't that the whole thing? And Kamala ain't black. All right. I'm not going to go into too much depth in that conversation here today. I've done it too many times already. But this whole, you got to support a black woman thing. And what I've seen a lot of the cognitive dissonance on social media from leftist supporters of Kamala was, oh, well, America's just not ready to support a black woman. Bullshit. That's not the problem. Problem was not that Kamala's a black woman. Problem is Kamala had no substance. She had nothing. She had no substance. And I'm going to get into that as we go further into our points. I'm just going over my social media posts here. And this DEI era, I already just talked about that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right. Those words, if you look them up in the dictionary, sound really good. The problem is the implementation of DEI is not a reflection of of what it says in the dictionary. Diversity does not mean diversity of color. It means diversity of skill and diversity of points of view, which means you can have a room full of white people. If they all have different points of view, you have diversity. The diversity of color doesn't mean anything. If you get a bunch of people who are all different colors in a room, but they're all left-leaning liberals, do you have diversity? No, You know, diversity, everybody thinks the same way. They just happen to be different colors. That's not diversity. And I'm on the record on all these things. So any of you who is new around here or you are not familiar with my work, nothing I'm saying here is brand new. I'm on the record, published publicly on every single thing that I'm saying here. Secondly, equity. Equity says everyone should end up with equal outcomes. That's complete nonsense, and it's impossible. It is humanly impossible for everyone to end up with the same outcomes. Why? Because human beings get to make their own decisions. If I give you $1 million and somebody gives me $1 million, are we going to both end up in the same place 10 years from now? No, because you're going to do different things with your money than I'm going to do with my money. So how are we going to get equity? We can't. Equity is impossible. The way that it's laid out, the way that it is implemented, what I mean when I say equity, everyone ending up in the same place is completely impossible. It's a ridiculous idea. And the fact that anyone even bought into this in the first place shows how susceptible human beings are to emotional arguments and how it overpowers logic, because logically that makes no sense whatsoever. And the last one, inclusion. All right, I'm not about inclusion. I'm not a fan of inclusion. I'm a fan of exclusion. Now, why am I a fan of exclusion? All right, again, let me remind you where I'm from. I'm an athlete. In the sports world, do we have inclusion? Hell fucking no, we don't have no inclusion. All right. Does everybody make the basketball team? No. All right. The basketball team, 50 kids try out, 12 people make it. That's exclusion. That's literally the definition of exclusion. The value of the room is the fact that not everybody can be in the room. Any room that everybody can get in does not have as much value because it's everybody gets it. Participation trophies are a reflection of inclusion. Everybody gets a trophy. Fuck that. Everybody don't get a trophy. You give a trophy to the winners. The winners get a trophy. If you didn't win, you don't get a trophy. You go home crying. And you got to go work on your game so you come back next time and you might win something. That's the way it works. I'm not a fan of inclusion. Let everybody have a chance. Let everybody have a seat at the table. If everybody has a seat at the table, that table is not that valuable. All right. Any of you, I'm going to be on a plane next week. You know why first class is first class? You know, when you get on the plane, you got to walk past first class to get to your seat. In some planes, sometimes it's one to the left and one to the right. But you know why first class is valuable? Because there's only a few seats and not everybody can sit there. That's what makes it valuable. I mean, you get there at the same time. You just pay extra money. I mean, you get perks, you get more attention, you get more leg room, you get some food and all of that. Was why I like flying first class. But what makes first class valuable is the fact that there's only a few seats in first class and there's a bunch of seats in economy. I am not a fan of inclusion, just letting everybody be in just to let everybody be in. If everybody can be in a room, I don't want to be in a room. I want to be in a place that not everybody can get in. Why? Because that it says to me is a reflection on me that I can be in a place that everybody can't be. All right. That's how it works in life. This is how the human ego works. Whether you want to admit it or not, that does not change reality. So that's what I'm saying about DEI. And the last one is social media is not real life. All right. People can tell the difference between an influencer and reality. So what the Kamala Harris campaign did is that they spent a lot of money on influencers. So those of you who pay attention to this stuff, you don't, I'll let you know that the Kamala Harris campaign raised a ton more money than the Trump campaign did. They had a lot more money. They had like $1 billion worth of donations that they took in during this election cycle. And they used a lot of that money on paying influencers. So when you saw Cardi B giving a speech in Wisconsin, all right, she didn't do that out of the kindness of her heart. They paid her and they flew her out there to give that speech. A waste of money, if you ask me, but they did that. All right, all of those people they had, Oprah got paid. Fat Joe got paid. Jennifer Lopez got paid. I don't think LeBron got paid. LeBron just said something at the end of after a game when he was talking to the press. Maybe he didn't get paid to say that. But all these other folks, Usher got paid. All these people got paid to do what they did. Either they got paid or someone above them in the chain of command got paid. And all these people who work in Hollywood, these celebrities, there's a chain of command, in case you didn't know. All right. So social media is not real life, and people are getting tired of this. We're getting tired of being told by influencers what we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to think, especially when we know the influencer has puppet strings on them. And people who work in Hollywood, so when I say Hollywood, I mean entertainers, influencers, not influencers, entertainers, actors and actresses. Who else is in Hollywood? Movie producers, those kind of folks, TV folks like Oprah. These people have puppet strings on them. There are people who tell them what they can and can't do. And this is why so many of them lean to the left, not because they necessarily are leftists themselves, but because they got bosses. I mean, not bosses in the traditional sense that maybe some of you may have at your job, but these people do have bosses. They're just quiet type of bosses. So that was my post from Instagram this morning. Now let me respond to this gentleman's comment. So this gentleman, again, this is on Instagram. His name is Jovon Bell. And you can see this comment on my post on IG. So if you didn't see it, I will I will read out this post and what this gentleman said. Now, where to go? All right, here it is. So Jovon says, this is everything that I just told you is what I said about what I said on my Instagram post, but then I explained it. So here's what Jovon says. I'm going to read his full comment. All right, here's what he says. In what way is Trump a nice or moral man? Question mark. I'm genuinely curious. He has falsely claimed that the first black president was Kenyan, accused 5 black teens of sexual assault without evidence, and has never apologized for it. I understand that you may not like Kamala Harris, but why would you want your children to grow up emulating Trump? Question. If you are a Christian, how can you see him as Christ-like in any way? And he has a question mark at the end of it. And I told him I'll respond on my live. So here's my response to Mr. Jovon Bell. Any of you know Jovon, y'all can pass this along to him. First of all, this is the exact point that I just made about Kamala supporters. I made a post that was all about Kamala. I did not mention Donald Trump's name one time. His entire comment is all about Donald Trump. This is the exact point that I'm making in the title of this live. Nobody liked Kamala. He didn't say anything to defend Kamala. All he did was talk about Donald Trump. There's a logical fallacy out there called the tu quoque fallacy. If you're not familiar with this fallacy, you can look it up, but I'll explain it to you very briefly. The tu quoque fallacy is when someone offers let's say a critique or criticism of you, and your response to it is to talk about them. So it's kind of like if I'm in the gym working out and somebody walks in and says, hey, your form is wrong when you do that bench press. And I say, well, what do you know about bench press? How much can you bench press? Can you bench press as much as me? That has nothing to do with what the person actually said. If my form is wrong, my form is wrong. It doesn't matter if the person who said it to me is a bodybuilder like Arnold Schwarzenegger or is a person who's never lifted weights ever in their lives. A criticism is still a criticism. And if they're right, they're right. So it's like there was this clip that I saw on social media a couple of weeks ago. There's a football player who plays for the Dallas Cowboys. It looked like he kind of loafed off on a play and didn't really give effort. So a reporter, he took that clip and posted it and said, what is this guy doing on this play? And that guy, the player, he approached the reporter after the game and says, well, you can't do what I do. You never played in the NFL. You ain't never been on the field. You never been in my situation. You need to stay in your lane and stop talking about what I'm doing. All right, that's the tu quoque fallacy. All right, the fact that that reporter doesn't play in the NFL has nothing to do with the fact that you didn't do what you were supposed to do on that play, allegedly. That's the tu quoque fallacy. And I see a lot of people doing this when it comes to defending Kamala Harris against Donald Trump. As soon as I say something about Kamala, they immediately turn the question to Trump. But all that said, let me respond to what he said point by point. We're going to go through this layer by layer. All right. So the first thing he says, in what way is Trump a nice or moral man? So this is what we call the moral high ground fallacy. So we're going to go through this whole thing. I'm just pointing out all the logical fallacies. All right. In what way is Trump a nice or moral man? So that's two fallacies in one. So first is the tu quoque. Secondly is the moral high ground. He's not a moral person. So how can you go for him? Well, let me throw that back around to him, Mr. Jovon Bell. Is Kamala Harris not the person who said she was going to support doing sex change operations for people who claim to be wanting to be transgender, even though they were criminals and they were locked up in prisons? She's on the record saying that, and there's a video of it. You can go find it. So we want to talk about morality. All right, neither one of them has any more moral upstanding on the other between Kamala and Trump. Secondly, never once did I say anything about Trump's morality, and nor do I care. I don't care about your morality. All right, I don't care, because it has been said, he without sin shall cast the first stone. So who here is qualified to cast a stone on anybody? I'm not. Kamala ain't. Trump ain't. And Jovon, I don't know you, but I doubt you are either. So let's just throw that question in garbage. Useless. He said, as Jovon goes on to say, he has falsely claimed that the first black president was Kenyan. Let's address that right now. All right, how do you know where Barack Obama is from? Let me ask anybody who's listening to this. Where's Barack Obama from, and how do you know? Now, if you are a logical, critical thinker as I am, your answer should be, there's only one correct answer to this question. The only correct answer to the question of where's Barack Obama from and how do you know is, I don't know. None of you knows where he's from unless you were there when he was born. You don't know. What you should say, though, is what I believe is, and then you give your answer. So let me do it for you. Where's Barack Obama from? I don't know where he's from. But what I believe is that Barack Obama was born in Kenya. And I explained this a few lives ago, several days ago. Why do I believe Barack Obama was born in Kenya? I'll say this very quickly. He was writing a book in the 90s before he was getting into politics and probably didn't even have any sights on being president, because to be president of the United States, you had to be born in the United States of America, in case you didn't know that. He wanted to be, or not really wanted to be, he was going to write a book. The publisher put a little bio, a little blurb of him in their marketing materials because he was in the process of writing the book. I've written books with traditional publishers, so I know how it works. It said Barry Soetoro, which is the name that his original name is Barry Soetoro. His name was not Barack Obama. It's Barry Soetoro. It says, it has a picture of him, and it says Barry Soetoro was born in Kenya and raised in Indonesia. Now, that is enough information for me to know, or believe that he was born in Kenya. Now, why is that enough information? The reason that's enough information is because anytime I want to know if what somebody's actual telling the truth, I want to know what you said when you didn't have anything to gain by giving me a certain answer. And when Barack Obama had nothing to gain from being born in Hawaii, the story was he was born in Kenya. Now, when he has something to gain or something to prove by being born in Hawaii, i.e., I'm American, which means I can run for president, all of a sudden he was born in Hawaii. Candace Owens did investigative journalism into this. If you don't know, go watch the videos. And it shows, there's a video of someone else who did it. They found that birth certificate. So what happened when Donald Trump came out, this is why people call Trump racist, is that Donald Trump first, before he ran, he was saying that Obama was born in Kenya. He wasn't born in America. Trump was saying that back in the days. Y'all remember that, right? Which is how they got Trump and Obama at odds with each other. And that correspondence dinner when I think it was Seth Meyers was like making jokes about Trump, and then Trump ended up running and winning, that whole thing. So what happened is Barack Obama wrote a letter to the state of Hawaii asking them to provide proof of his birth in Hawaii. Give us a birth certificate. Can you give us 2 copies of the birth certificate? And you can do this in any state, by the way. You can go to any state and you can ask for copies of a birth certificate of anyone. You have to pay, and it usually takes weeks or months for them to get back to you. What happened is the people in Hawaii wrote Obama back in like 3 days, which is super fast for any type of government turnaround. Any of you who's ever worked in or with the government, that's crazy. 3-day turnaround. They said, since we've been getting inundated with calls about your birth certificate, sir, we are going to take care of this and expedite the process and get you 2 copies of the birth certificate. They got a birth certificate. That's what Obama put out there. Say, here, everybody, I was born in Hawaii. Here's the proof. Here's what happened. A investigator on YouTube found that birth certificate, that one that he put out there, Obama, and they did a forensic investigation into the birth certificate to find out if it was actually real. They scoured the other birth certificates from the state of Hawaii, same record, place, same time, and they found another one that looked like it was an exact forgery of the same birth certificate. All they did was swap the names out and the dates. And it shows, and they went and had a couple forensic investigators, people who study handwriting and documents and try to prove in a court of law, is this real or is it not real? And they said that if they had to go into court and swear on the Bible, they believe that that birth certificate that Barack Obama produced was a forgery of someone else's real birth certificate. All they did was swap the names out to make it say Barack Obama. That is enough information for me to believe, to believe Barack Obama was born in Kenya. He is not born in Hawaii. And again, Donald Trump was the first person to popularize the concept that Barack Obama was born in Kenya. I believe Barack Obama was born in Kenya. And again, I just gave you the reason why and the supporting information. So this guy, Jovon, now I answered that question, that Barack Obama was Kenyan. All right, he is Kenyan. Secondly, he accused 5 black teens of sexual assault without evidence. Okay, let's address that. So this is the central part 5 this guy is addressing. So we're going to keep it logical. First of all, Donald Trump did not accuse 5 black teens of sexual assault. They were accused of sexual assault. He didn't accuse them. He's not the police. He's not the local jurisdiction. They accused the 5 black teens of sexual assault. And let's be clear, the 5 black teens, the night they were, or when they were arrested for the sexual assault charge in the Central Park case, they admitted to the charges. They admitted to it. So they signed statements that said they did the stuff. So here's what actually happened with the Central Park Files. A bunch of young black kids, they decided to go in Central Park and they were just going to cause a ruckus. They were going to beat people up, vandalize stuff, and attack people, which they actually did. The Central Park 5 did those things. They went into Central Park and they were beating people up and vandalizing people and messing people up in the park that night. The Central Park 5 is guilty of that. They did it and they admitted to doing it. What happened is they also got charged with the sexual assault. They didn't do the sexual assault. There was another person who did the sexual assault, which wasn't those 5 guys. Their crimes were exonerated, but that doesn't mean they didn't do it. They did do not the sexual assault, but they did go beat people up in the park. And Donald Trump did not do the accusing. All Donald Trump did was take a newspaper ad out and say, we need to make the city more safe. This is what the ad said. And of course, he pinned it on the Central Park, the kids who had been arrested in Central Park. But the overall point of the ad was we need to make our city safer. And here's an example of why we need to make the city more safe. So this whole concept of the Central Park Five being accused without evidence is nonsense. The evidence was they actually fucking confessed to it in front of a police officer. How is that not evidence? That's evidence. You admit to a cop you did a crime. That's not evidence. So Jovon, what the hell are you talking about? So let's remove that one. And obviously, Jovon, it tends to be, and this happens with black people, especially when it comes to Donald Trump, is that they get more emotional than logical. Nothing Jovon here says here is logical so far. All right, it's mostly emotional, which I understand. All right, men had tend to, we're going to get to that in a minute. Let me just hold off on that. Next, he never apologized for it. All right, he don't need to apologize. So I'll just explain that. Now, he said, I understand you may not like Kamala Harris. Not about me not liking her. I'm indifferent, but I don't think anybody else liked her, and was why she didn't win. And I'm explaining that. But why would you? Here's Jovon's question. Dre, why would you want your children to grow up emulating Trump? Okay, so let's address that right there. First of all, sir, I don't know if you have children or not, Jovon, and anybody else listening to this. My kids are not going to grow up emulating anybody that they see on the TV or a screen. They're going to grow up emulating me and my wife, their mother. That's what they're going to emulate. Parents are role models, not the president, not an athlete, not an entertainer, not some influencer, not some podcaster, not some person you watch online. So this question is complete non sequitur. Non sequitur just means it does not follow. It does not connect. So him saying, why would you want your children growing up to emulate Trump? So what are you saying? You're saying that if Kamala had won, then my kids are supposed to grow up to emulate Kamala? Kamala? What the hell are you talking about? This is a completely ridiculous question. And again, unfortunately, this is what's happened to masculinity in our world. I'm assuming Jovon to be a man. All right. What man wants their kids growing up emulating a politician? I don't give a damn who the politician is. I think Barack Obama was a great picture of a politician when he ran, but he was a great picture of one. I want my kids growing up emulating him. I wouldn't want to emulate him. Your kids should be growing up to emulate you and the parents, whoever the parents are, the mom and the dad. That's who your kids should be looking to emulate. You're the role model, not anybody that they see on TV. So this is a ridiculous question from a man that is leaning much more into his feminine energy here. And then the last one is, if you are a Christian, I'm not a Christian, by the way, but he assumed, if you are a Christian, how can you see him as Christ-like in any way? Again, this is another logical fallacy here. So how can you see him as Christ-like? First of all, is Kamala Harris Christ-like? Are you joking? Again, if we're comparing these two people, what sense does this question make? This question makes no sense whatsoever. So that's all the question that this guy, Jovon Bell, posted. And I told him it would be a catch-all answer for anybody else saying this nonsensical, emotionalized stuff, especially males. And this is really annoying to me. I've been saying this for years. This is not new, by the way, that I really get annoyed with feminized men. Feminine energy men really annoy the shit out of me. There are certain groups of people that I'm really annoyed by. This might be my least favorite, is feminine energy men who get into their feminine when they hear something that they don't like and they start throwing out nonsense like everything that Jovon said here in this comment. And I just read everything in this comment. So any of you knows Jovon, go pass it on that I addressed him in my live around the 42-minute mark. So y'all go let him know. Let me continue with my points on why nobody liked Kamala. All right. First of all, but I've said a whole lot of things here. Here's another thing that we have come to understand. Some of you already understood this, but for some of you, you had to hear it. Some of you had to hear it from the ballot box. Heterosexual men do not follow women. Let me take a sip of water while that thought sinks in. Let me say it again. I'm going to take a sip of water. Heterosexual men do not plan on following behind women. I'm a heterosexual man. I don't follow behind a woman. And I think it was made clear during this campaign that the Harris campaign, they had this nonsense concept led by what's Kamala's husband's name? Doug Emhoff, who actually, it is said that there was a woman he was dating before Kamala that she did something that he didn't like at a party. He slapped her, but she didn't come out. She would never air herself out. But they've said that this has been like verified by the woman, but she never put herself out there. So anyway, Doug, Kamala's husband, he was calling himself, what was he calling himself? The second gentleman, and he would be the first gentleman because he would be the husband to the president as a female. And Tim Walz, the governor from Minnesota, who was going to be the VP pick, that they had this whole subtopic of redefining masculinity, that these two men were going to redefine masculinity by showing that it's completely okay for a man, a heterosexual man, to follow behind a woman. All right. The United States of America completely and soundly rejected that bullshit. And even if she had won, I'd still be rejecting that bullshit. Man is not designed to follow behind a woman. When God created man, he created man first. He created woman from the rib of the man to be a helpmate to the man. All right, that is indisputable. All right, that's assuming you read the Bible and you understand what it says. All right, man was created to lead. Woman was created to be the helpmate to the man, to follow the man. This whole concept of redefining masculinity is completely rejected. Return to sender. Your deposit has not been accepted. No, we are not doing that. That's not what's happening. The only group in the United States of America where this has any traction whatsoever is in the Black community, where women have bought into this concept, and Kamala cosplaying as Black. Kamala is not Black. I talked about that already. Kamala cosplaying as a Black person. Her appeal to Black females who voted, like, of those who voted, like 97% of them voted for Kamala. So clearly this worked. And of course, you also had the juxtaposition with Donald Trump, this white man. So of course they voted for her. This concept that we're redefining masculinity and it's okay for a woman to lead and be in a top position, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, I'm not okay. I'm not against, rather, a woman being in a leadership position. A woman can be a head of a household if she happens to be, if the man's not around for whatever reason. A woman can be a CEO. A woman can start her own business. A woman can be a manager or a boss or in some type of leadership position. I'm okay with all of that. What I'm saying is, as a society, period, men are not designed to follow behind women. And let me give you a more clear example of this. Here's what you all got to understand, is that whenever there is crisis, whenever crisis happens in life, anywhere in life, everyone immediately returns to their natural roles. I used this as an example a few days ago. If there was a war happening on American soil, so usually the wars that we're in my lifetime, we send our troops over to the other countries to go fight. But what if a war happened here? What if some country came and invaded us and they're running through Detroit and New York and Miami and Houston and Texas and Denver, and they're actually doing battle on the streets of our towns? All right, let me ask you a question. How many women will be on the front line holding the gun, putting their life on the line to defend the country? Somebody answer that question. There's any women listening to this? Answer the question. Would you be on the front line holding the gun to defend the country while the men stayed at home? No. All right. You'd be right in that fucking kitchen, taking care of the kids, and the men will be out there on the front line defending themselves, defending you, the kids, and the country. All right. That's what would happen. So miss me with this. It's time to put a woman into a leadership position. See, the only reason that this nonsense even exists, this line of reasoning even exists in the world that we live in today. The reason that this line of reasoning exists, the world we live in today, is because we have such a, for lack of a better term, luxurious and safe world, especially in the United States. Our world is very safe and very luxurious. And when that happens, people start kind of expanding their horizons. Like if we were living in a state of austerity where there was war and there was famine and people were starving and people were dying on the streets of thirst and hunger, the men will be on the front lines trying to figure things out, and the women would be home barefoot in the kitchen taking care of the kids. No disrespect to the women, but that's what would happen when we are in crisis. People return to their natural roles. So any women listening to this right now, some of you may be in leadership positions right now. All right, and good. And hopefully you can stay in that leadership position because we will continue to prosper as a country. When our country is prosperous, then people can expand their horizons and they can do all this stuff. But when there's no prosperity and there's austerity, which means things are going backwards and we're losing and nobody has anything, then the men got to be on the front line leading. And no woman would want to be on the front line leading because you'd be going against a bunch of men. How are you going to win? How are you going to win? Back in the caveman days, as they say, who was the leader? All right, there were no women leaders. There were no women running for president back in the caveman days. Why? Because that was back then. It was hand-to-hand combat. It was straight up barbarism. And the only way you could win was to physically defeat your opponents. You had to physically subjugate your opponent. That's the only way you can win. And if there was no man covering that cave and another rival caveman came to that cave and saw there was no man around, guess what? He was killing the kids and he was raping the women. That was happening. I shouldn't say that word. He was R-ing the women. All right, but I said it. I think I can get away with it, maybe. So that's what would happen. And this is the reason why a man needed to be there to protect the cave. No man there to protect the cave. All hell's going to break loose inside of that cave. And that woman got to get out of there and go find a man to defend her because hand-to-hand combat, you ain't winning. And who's going to protect the kid while you're fighting? All right, this is the natural order of things. I'm using caveman example as a natural order. So some of you may be saying, well, Dre, we don't live in caveman times anymore. Yes, I get it. The point is the fact that we have prosperity is the reason why that's allowed, that we can have these conversations about, well, let's let a woman lead. We are letting a woman lead. The woman is not taking the lead. We're letting a woman lead. And there is a difference. And again, any women or feminized men who may be offended by what I just said, let me ask you another question. Name one army led by a woman who has ever conquered or defeated anyone. Name them. Ain't none. There aren't any. There's no army that's been led by a woman or constituted of women. The soldiers, not just the leader, but the soldiers as well, that has won anything. All right, they don't exist. This is not a thing. So this whole redefining masculinity thing is complete bullshit. Masculinity means the man leads. You don't redefine that. And I hate this whole concept of redefining anything. We don't redefine things. The dictionary tells us the definition of a word, and that's the definition. You can't redefine a word just to fit what you want it to mean. All right, that's bullshit. All right, so we're not redefining anything. The dictionary tells us what a word means. And if we can't agree on what a word means because I got this definition and you have that definition, well, society is going to collapse, because the main thing that makes society is the fact that we can communicate. And I understand this word means this. You understand this word means that. That's the reason why we can get along and communicate. The reason you can listen to me talk for 51 minutes so far here today is because when I say a word, as long as you understand English, you know what I'm saying. And you can agree or you can disagree, but nobody's confused as to what exactly I'm saying, because we can communicate. So if we start redefining words and I think book means this, and you think book means that, how are we going to get along? We can't, because we're talking two different languages. So this whole concept of redefining anything, I reject all of it. We're not redefining anything. Nothing's being redefined. So we're not taking a woman's right to choose and turning that into that's what abortion means. That's bullshit. A woman's right to choose is you decide to lay down and have unprotected sex with a man. That's the choice right there. The choice is not abortion or no abortion. The choice is I'm going to have unprotected sex with a man because that's how you get pregnant. So the woman's right to choose is not when you decide to keep the baby or not keep the baby. The woman's right to choose is what you did to have the baby in the first place, or had the baby growing inside of you in the first place. This is not, what do they call it? Women's freedom. Women already have freedom. All right. Women's rights. Women already have rights. There's no right that a man has that a woman does not have. And Donald Trump won. So what right do you not have because Donald Trump won and Kamala didn't win? Name it. There aren't any. Women have every right that a man has. So this whole women's rights thing is a redefinition. Bullshit. Women's, Women's right to choose. Bullshit. I just explained that. Gender affirming care. That's some more bullshit. It's child mutilation is what it is. If you have a son, he decides he wants to remove his reproductive organ because he decided that he's a girl. That's child mutilation. That is not gender affirming care. You're not affirming anything. You cannot affirm your gender through going to the doctor. God decided your gender when you were conceived, that this is going to be a boy, this is going to be a girl. You can't change that. Same way you can't change your where you're from, like your heritage, your ethnicity, race, whatever language people want to use these days. You can't change those things. There are certain immutable characteristics that we all have that you cannot change. And you start playing around with that, what you're doing is playing around with Satan, because you damn sure ain't listening to God. All right, deeper conversation for a different day. Let me continue. Nobody like Kamala Harris is the topic here today. Next point, Kamala is not a leader. Are there women out there who could lead? I do. I think so. Is Kamala Harris that woman? No. Kamala Harris is not a leader. Now, how do I know that Kamala Harris is not a leader? Well, I just gave you an example when I was reading Mr. Jovon Bell's comment from Instagram that as soon as you criticize her, the first thing people do is start talking about the other person instead of talking about her. I haven't heard anyone actually defend Kamala. I haven't heard anyone defend Kamala. On my Instagram, my social media posts for the last month and a half, I have offered multiple times a criticism of the Harris campaign or of Kamala Harris herself. Nobody has actually defended her with anything of substance. The only defenses I got of her was somebody changing the subject to Trump. That's been 90% of it. Or, well, you got to support a woman or you got to support a black person. Those are the only defenses they've given her. No one's given any actual defenses of Kamala as a person. They only talked about immutable characteristics or change the subject to Trump. If she was a true leader, people could defend her and what she does if she was a true leader. You may hate Donald Trump. Some of you don't like Donald Trump at all. You hate the fact that I'm even saying anything that even sounds halfway positive about him. Let me ask you a question, though. Do you know who he is? Do you know what he's about? Can we agree that he's a leader? Again, you could hate him. Is he a leader? Well, we have to agree he's a leader because he got 65 million people to vote for him 3 times, or 65-ish. I think this time he got 70 something. 3 times, he got 60 to 70 million people to get up, go to the ballot box, and actually vote for him. He did that 3 times. You can't say he's not a leader. You get 65 million people to support you. All right, what is he? If he ain't a leader, what is he? Again, you can say he's a leader of terrible things that you don't like. He's a leader of racism. He's a leader of fascism. He's a leader of xenophobia. He's a leader of misogyny. He's a leader of being a criminal. He's a leader of going bankrupt. You can say he's a leader of all the negative things you can come up with, but you can't say he's not a leader. Kamala Harris is not a leader. What has she led? Name something she's led. She didn't even win a Democratic primary. She did not win a primary. Now, she piggybacked off Biden winning the primary, and she got to have all the delegates passed to her. And I get all the things that people said. But do you not recall, maybe you don't because it was so quick that you might not have noticed, Kamala Harris tried to run for the Democratic nomination in the year 2020, and she failed. She was so bad that they didn't even make it to the primary voting before she dropped out of the race. And go read the stories on why she dropped out. A lot of that stuff got scrubbed from the internet, but you can find it if you look hard enough. That one of the main reasons that she dropped out is because her campaign was so poorly organized and poorly run. Her staffers were quitting on her. They didn't want to work with her. She was ill prepared, often not prepared, and then she would blame her staff when she showed up unprepared for her job. And that's why they quit. Again, that happened. I'm not making any of this up, folks. All of this happened. Kamala Harris is not a leader, and it's why nobody liked her. Again, what has she led and who has she led? You can't name anything. Let's move on. And the topic here today is nobody liked Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is happy. Now, I know Joe Biden's going to get a lot of blame. People are eventually going to move around to blaming Joe Biden for what happened here. Because Joe Biden, first of all, he decided to run again for president in 2024. And then he was mentally declining and didn't step aside soon enough for them to regroup and find them being the Democrats, to find maybe a better candidate than Kamala, or he set Kamala up to fail by his poor administration. They're going to eventually find a way to put all the blame on Joe Biden for Kamala Harris's failure. I would suggest, though, Joe Biden's probably happy at what happened. And why do I say that? Why do I think Joe Biden's happy with what happened? Because Joe Biden got pushed out. All right. So I said this yesterday. If you think Joe Biden voluntarily stepped aside to let Kamala take his spot in this election, then I have a bridge in Oklahoma to sell you for $10 million cash. All right. Send it to my PayPal. All right. That didn't happen. All right. Joe Biden got pushed out. He did not want to be pushed out. He wanted to run this campaign. And I think Joe Biden would have performed better than Kamala. He would not have won. I think Trump would have won either way if Biden was the guy, because we saw during his debate, Joe Biden was looking bad and he wouldn't have been able to pick it up from there. And Trump would have been smart to say, I'm not debating you anymore. Like, that was enough, and just run ads and it would have been over. He still would have lost, but I think he would have did better than Kamala did, because Joe Biden, at least he got a track record. Kamala ain't got, at least he has a track record at the executive level. He was VP for Obama for 2 terms. And he did win the election in 2020. Now, again, a whole lot of things to say about 2020, not today. But he technically, the history books will say he won 2020. Kamala, and more importantly with Joe Biden, most importantly with Joe Biden, he went through a primary and beat all the other people who wanted that spot. Kamala has never done that. See, that's the problem. That's how we can say she's not a leader. She never went through a primary and beat everybody else who wanted the spot. Had they even done it this year, she would not have won. She would have came in last place. Had they thrown a bunch of Democratic nominees out there, throw out some names of people who could have ran for the Democratic ticket had they opened it up, and it wasn't going to be Biden, but they said, anybody who wants to run, come run. Throw some names out there of people who would have ran. All of them would have beat Kamala. Every name you can name, they all would have beat her, excuse me. So what Kamala should have did, is my next point, she should have hid in the basement. She should have did what Joe Biden did in 2020 and hide in the basement. The mistake that Kamala made was that she came outside. The biggest mistake Kamala Harris made in the 2024 campaign season, and she only had like 100 days to do this, 3-4 months. The biggest mistake Kamala made was that she came outside and actually started speaking. That was the biggest mistake she made. Do you remember in the 2020 election cycle when Kamala was the VP with Joe Biden? Joe Biden said, I'm picking a black woman. He picked Kamala. Do y'all remember the moment when Kamala was in a debate with Mike Pence? And Mike Pence was not a good debater. But y'all remember this when Kamala was debating Mike Pence and Mike Pence was over talking her and she said, I'm speaking. Remember that? Kamala was like, I'm speaking. And a bunch of people went and ran with that. Black women were really excited when Kamala did that. I'm speaking. They were all using it and they started making it to this big social media meme when Kamala said, I'm speaking. Kamala Harris speaking was the worst thing that she did during this election cycle. If she had stayed silent, she might have had a better chance of winning, just like Joe Biden did in 2020. Y'all remember Joe Biden in 2020? Donald Trump was calling him Joe Biden because he wasn't coming out and he wasn't talking to anybody. And that strategy actually worked, quote unquote. Again, I'm going to do a whole live on the 2020 election at a later date. But technically he won, all right, by saying nothing. Kamala lost by talking. All right, the more she talked, the worse she looked. She should have hid in the basement. And that leads to the very next point. Kamala Harris is not a compelling individual. And to be a leader, you must be compelling. Any of you who's a leader at what you do, where you are, whether you got one employee, whether you have one kid or whatever, you had to be compelling. You had to be able to compel people to lead. To lead people, you had to be able to compel them. And what does compelling mean? Compelling means being able to move people to action by inspiring them, motivating them, dictating to them, whatever words you want to use, maybe all of the above. You got to be able to move people to action to be a leader. Donald Trump can move people to action. Again, you might think those people are racist, terrible, bad, stupid, uneducated, whatever language you want to use. We cannot say that he cannot compel people. He is extremely compelling. He's been compelling for 3 straight election cycles, and people are still compelled by him. Nobody can challenge that. Who has Kamala Harris led? Who has she compelled? She hasn't compelled anybody. I believe all the people who were, quote unquote, supporting Kamala were doing so either because they don't like Donald Trump or because they were doing the identity politics, female and black, or because they're just a lifelong Democrat. I don't think there's anyone who was supporting Kamala because of Kamala. Because if there is, then Kamala should have no problem getting into the primary in 2028 and winning the Democratic nomination. How many of you want to bet some money on that? All right, please bet me money on that one. Please bet me on that. Who wants to take that bet? Please just to put the dollar amount you want to bet in the comments right now. Any of you who wants to bet that Kamala's going to run in 2028 and she's going to win the nomination, please tell me how much money you want to bet. I will take that bet today. Kamala's done. We ain't going to see her ever again or at the executive level trying to do anything. That ain't happening. If you want to take that bet, please post in the comments how much you want to bet. I don't see any comments yet. Maybe it's a lag time. I'll give y'all a second. Anybody want to take that bet? Rumble, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. Anybody want to take the bet that Kamala Harris is going to run in 2028 and you believe she's actually going to win? Please tell me you want that bet. I am here for this. I'm here for this one. I'm here for this one. Okay, I don't see anybody saying anything. So I'm looking over on X to see if I got it. All right. She should have hid in the basement, as I just said. And I'm going to take questions and comments at the end. I got a couple more points. You can't become president without being compelling. All right. You want to see someone who's really compelling. Well, Trump is one example, but another very compelling person that we've seen, let's say this century, Barack Obama, extremely compelling individual. So y'all don't think I'm over here pushing Republican. I'm not a Republican. I'm not MAGA. I'm not even a Trump supporter. I'm just a supporter of objectivity and logic and critical thinking. That's what I'm a supporter of. And Barack Obama was a very compelling individual. He's still compelling. He's not quite as compelling as he used to be because people got tired of his act. And he got really out of line with some of the things he said to black people during this cycle in support of Kamala. He had to do it, though, because he works for the Democrats. He got to do what they said. Barack Obama was extremely compelling. Even if you didn't like him, you couldn't say that he wasn't compelling. His internal and external posture, his aura, his energy, the way he spoke, the way he carried himself. He was extremely presidential. If you just looked at Barack, if you went to Chat GPT and said, I want you to create an avatar of a presidential person. I want to be a black, quote unquote, he is black. He's from Kenya, so that's still black. A black man who's going to become president of the United States of America, and he has to get at least a good percentage of white people who have never voted for a black man to be president to actually support him. Give me a picture perfect 3D printout of who this person would be. It would print Barack Obama. Barack Obama was extremely compelling. He was a leader. He has charisma. He has the speaking skills. He has the oratory ability, and he can move people to action. Barack had all of those. Kamala has none of those. Zero. So people saying that people didn't vote for Kamala because they don't want to support a black woman. No, they don't support her because she's not a leader. She's not compelling. She can't move people to action. She has none of the traits, personality-wise, that Barack Obama had or has. Barack Obama today is still better than Kamala Harris now. And Barack ain't even in his prime no more. He's better than Kamala now. And that's the problem. Michelle Obama is better than Kamala right now. She ain't never had no position. This is the problem with Kamala. More problems with Kamala. Next, you cannot keep repeating the same talking points. This is another reason why Kamala is not a leader. She repeats the same talking points over and over again. Aspirations, dreams, and ambitions. Remember, how many times did she say that? Aspirations, dreams, and ambitions. Well, first of all, Kamala, she should have had me on her team because I would have helped her out. Most people do not have aspirations, dreams, and ambitions. Most people are not ambitious. Most people just want to be able to pay their bills, take care of their kids, get by, eventually, retire without going broke, and hopefully set up their kids to be a little bit better than they were. All right, that's what most people want. That's not the definition of ambition. Most people are not ambitious. Most people do not have, and you call those hopes, maybe. I just want to be able to pay my bills and pay for groceries. Dreams, most people don't have dreams. People just want to live. They want to live, survive, get by, hope their kids are doing a little bit better than them, and not have the government all in their business and making things worse. That's what most people want. So when she kept talking about dreams, hopes, and ambitions, it was a terrible concept because most people ain't got those. Other thing is she just kept saying the same things over and over again. Whenever she got asked questions about the economy, she would talk about, well, I come from a middle-class family. Nobody gives a fuck where you come from. All right. Donald Trump comes from his dad being somewhat rich, I guess, from being in real estate. Donald Trump ever say that? He never said it. But he still appealed to the working class person more than Kamala, even though Kamala comes from a more humble background than Trump. Make that make sense. Let me say that again, in case y'all didn't catch the question. Donald Trump's dad it was well known that Donald Trump's dad had some money. Now, he was a real estate guy, not as big as Donald Trump became, but Fred Trump was Donald's dad, was a successful real estate guy who left Donald, the son, some money. Now, Donald Trump had some money to start, and he went and built on that and expanded and became Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not come from a humble background that most people will call humble. Kamala's background was much more humble than Donald's. Her family was not rich. At least it wasn't known that they were rich. They didn't have money or anything like that. She claimed that she worked at McDonald's to pay for schooling or whatever, right? So most rich kids ain't going to work at McDonald's. Donald Trump never said he worked at McDonald's. Well, he did that one shift during the campaign, but y'all get what I'm saying. Tongue-in-cheek joke. Kamala comes from a much more humble background than Donald Trump, yet the everyday person, the everyday working American, related to Donald Trump a lot more than they related to Kamala. How did that happen? How did Kamala fumble that bag? Explain that to me. How did Kamala fumble the bag? I come from a humble background. My parents were lower middle class. My household was lower middle class. All right, if I'm running against Donald Trump, I'm going to relate to the everyday person more than he does because I'm going to keep nailing that point. I'm going to nail that point so hard that he ain't going to be able to beat me on that. How did Kamala fumble that? Because she has no skills. She doesn't have the oratory skills. She doesn't have the personality. She is not compelling. And she kept repeating the same talking points over and over again. She has no substance. Kamala Harris has no substance. She's still alive. She has no substance. Donald Trump has done how many interviews over the last 10 years? Do you ever hear him repeating the same stuff over and over again? You could go back to his stuff from 2016, his stuff from 2020, and his stuff from now. I don't hear him repeating any talking point over and over again. I don't even hear him saying it. He says make America great again, but he don't just keep repeating it over the course of every speech. He might say it at the end, but he's done interviews. He's done 2-hour interviews. He did Joe Rogan for 3 hours. He's done all these interviews. He's talked to people who were negative towards him, National Association of Black Journalists, mainstream media many times, all the debate stages he's been on. And I never hear him repeat the same things over and over again. Kamala did it, and she only had to do it for 3 months. Are you kidding me? The reason that she lost because she's Black and female? No, she lost because she has nothing. No substance, folks. There's nothing there. That's the reason why she lost. And this exposed her lack of personality. It exposed her lack of substance. And again, she only had to talk for 3 months and couldn't do it. Donald Trump's been talking for 10 years and did it. One race line says, humble, her household was upper middle class. Fair enough. But compared to Trump, she started from more humble beginnings is the point that I'm making. I'm making just between the two of them. It was more humble. And again, she claimed that she worked at McDonald's. She claimed that she worked at McDonald's. All right, so that's the part that just wasn't making any sense. I don't think she ever worked at McDonald's, but that's what she said. Anyway, next point. All the celebrities, I already touched on this really, they were paid to support her. But compared that to Trump, how many celebrities did Donald Trump pay to support him? Not many. Not many. First of all, he didn't have the money. Donald Trump was outspent budget-wise in all 3 elections he's been in. Some of you might not know that. Clinton outspent him by a lot. Biden outspent him by a lot. And Kamala outspent him by the most. They had $1 billion to spend, the Kamala campaign. So if you wanted to make some money, you should have got a job with the Kamala campaigns. They had plenty of money to throw around. And they threw around a lot of it. They got all those supporters paid to support her. Donald Trump, all the support he got, like famous people who stepped up and offered any type of support or alliance with Donald Trump, they were doing so voluntarily, and really they were risking more than they were gaining, because as I already explained, they made being a Trump supporter into a pejorative, like a negative thing. Being a Trump supporter or Republican or MAGA or any of those things is now a pejorative where you're risking friendships, family connections, your job, your income, people liking you professionally by even showing any inkling that you might like Donald Trump. So anyone famous who came out and offered support of Trump knows that they were risking their income, their careers, their families, being liked, their fans, all of that stuff. And he still won. All that money paid to celebrities that the left had, and they still lost. And that just proves people don't want to hear what the fuck some celebrity has to say about how you're supposed to live your life. Now, if you want to play a song, J-Lo, all right, J-Lo ain't that good of a singer. But if you want to, what's J-Lo do well? You want to show your ass, J-Lo? All right, I'll watch. All right. Fat Joe, you want to rap? I will listen. All right. Usher, you want to dance? Okay, fine. But I don't want to hear any of them telling me how I'm supposed to be living my everyday life, because the everyday person who is working to make sure that they pay bills, paycheck to paycheck, they can't relate to Usher or Oprah Winfrey. Like, what the hell are you going to tell me about how my life is? You don't know shit about this life. How are they talking about this? It makes no sense. So it was a bad idea by the Democrats. I don't think they're going to learn. We'll see. I'm going to do a whole live in the future on what the left must learn about what went wrong here. And that one I'm going to talk about a lot harder. But let me recap my points. You got a question or comment, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'll address it in 1 second. So topic here today is nobody liked Kamala Harris. They still don't like her. I gave you my Instagram post from earlier. I'm not going to read that again. Just look on Instagram. You'll see my post. Heterosexual men do not follow behind women. That's my first point. And so this whole thing of redefining masculinity is complete bullshit. We ain't redefining shit. Number two, Kamala is not a leader. And this is why nobody wanted to follow her. Number three, Joe Biden is happy that this happened because he got pushed out of his spot. He would have did better with him as the guy on the ticket rather than Kamala, and they both would have lost. But at least he could have fought his own battle and lost. He got pushed out of his own fight and lost. They're going to try to blame this on Biden. Watch, pay attention. They're going to start shifting the blame to Joe Biden of what happened. It ain't his fault. What's that? Ain't that a song? It ain't my fault. That's Joe Biden right now. It ain't my fault. Next, Kamala should have hid in the basement. That's what she should have did. She should have stayed in the basement hiding, just like Joe Biden did in 2020. She would have had a better chance of winning. The biggest mistake she made was talking. The more she talked, the worse she looked. Next, Kamala is not compelling. All right, you can't be a president if you're not compelling. You have to be able to compel, inspire, and motivate people. Barack Obama was great at it. Hillary was terrible. That's why she lost. Trump is amazing. That's why he keeps winning. Biden was terrible, which is why it was surprising that he won. Kamala sucked, and that's why she lost. And that it really does come down to that. And all the celebrities can't repeat the same talking points. You cannot keep repeating the same talking points over and over again. People will start to catch on to that. Like, does this person actually have anything to say? You don't have anything to say other than these talking points, or you're going to lose. It exposed her lack of personality and her lack of substance the more she did that. And they let's spend all that money on celebrities and paid endorsers and influencers. And Trump spent hardly any on that kind of stuff and still won. They outspent Trump probably, like, when the numbers come out, they probably outspent him at least double. Might have been 3-1. All the money that the Harris campaign used versus the money that the Trump campaign used. And all three elections were like this, and he won at least 2 of them. He might have won all 3. Different conversation that what we will have on a different day. All that said, you got a question or comment, go ahead and put it in the comment section. I'll address it right now. So YouTube, I did this live on, I used the YouTube platform this time instead of going through Rumble Studio. What's going on? Outside checking in from India. You said India supports Trump. All right, that's what's up. Shout out to India. Let's see what we got over on Facebook. Robin Murray said DEI is about to be DONE. Yeah, probably. Robin, I think you had commented yesterday. I missed the comment, but I appreciate it. You are right. Yes, DEI is about to be a wrap for DEI, as I explained. LinkedIn, I don't think anybody's going to comment on LinkedIn. I don't think people want to comment on this on their LinkedIn profiles. But shout out to everybody on LinkedIn who was watching this, whether you're watching live or replay. Instagram, coming to y'all now. So if you got a question or comment on Instagram, go ahead and post it. I'm looking right now for Instagram. So let's see. AFG said about TikTok. Yeah, so we'll be back on TikTok next Wednesday. And I'm going to be traveling Monday and Tuesday, so it's actually perfect timing. So thanks to TikTok for this perfect timing. Give me a break from live streaming, at least on TikTok. Coach P says Central Park 5. I don't know what that's in reference to. Imani S. Jones says they should have the I can't remember what you were referring to, but let's see. Tate Gunner says some Dems still think Harris will be running in 2028. Oh, she can run. She ain't going to win. Again, anybody want to take the bet that Kamala Harris will win the Democratic nomination in 2028? Please just put the dollar amount that you want to bet. I'll take that bet, and that'll be my money. Imani says, as an athlete, I agree with numbers, but I think the win most often come out of your playbook. This time it seems that the coach didn't have enough time to put the playbook together. Simple as that. Imani, all due respect, bullshit. All due respect, Imani, stop it. No, she didn't lose because she didn't have enough time. She didn't lose because she had too much time. As a matter of fact, had she only had a month to run, she might have won. The longer she was out there and the more she talked, the more she exposed her lack of substance, her lack of being compelling, and her lack of leadership ability. And so the longer the campaign, the worse she looks. And when someone has no substance, you want to have as little exposure as possible. Kamala Harris has no substance, so the more she got exposed, the worse she looked. So, no, I completely reject this concept that she didn't have enough time to put a playbook together. Forget no. Joe Biden was running the White House for, 4 years? She was with him the whole time. She claimed she was the last person in the room, every decision that he made. Now, all of a sudden, she didn't have enough time. No. Soul Art New York says, you're reading too much into that Kelly and Beyonce stuff. Okay, well, why was she dressed as a man? Like, Kelly Rowland is a good-looking woman. Why was she dressed as a man? And why did she allow it? That's what I want to know. Why did she say okay to that? Tate Gunner said all of them celebs on that list. Somebody please explain to me why Kelly Rowland came out with Beyonce. Beyonce dressed as a woman, and Kelly Rowland was dressed like a man. And Kelly Rowland is a good-looking woman. I'm just trying to understand why they did this. Imani said, pardon me, please. I'm open to listening to anyone or party, but easy on the name calling. What are you referring to? Are you talking to me, Imani? Imani, well, first of all, let's be clear on something. You are pardoned, but you don't tell me how I get to talk on my live stream. So you want to talk how you talk, you do your own live stream. I make the rules around here. This is not a democracy. This is a dictatorship. Soul Art New York says that's how they try to shame people for their beliefs and values. Yes, that's exactly what they do. Hawaii said, isn't that a violation of free speech? Technically, but it depends on where. See, you're allowed free speech in an open market. But if you go work somewhere, you don't necessarily have free speech because they can say, well, you can't say that here. So that's how it works. Matthew said, I want to make the NBA. All right, go do it. Go to hoophandbook.com. Soul Art New York says absolutely is a violation. It depends on where it's happening, if it's a violation or not. Tay said, do you see the names they was calling Trump fans? It was insane. Well, they're still saying it. They didn't stop. You said was as if it's in the past. No, you didn't see nothing yet. They about to do it a whole lot more during this next 4 years. Don't worry. It's not in the past tense. It's present tense. Hawaii says 1902 said they called us white women that voted for Trump uneducated. My opinion, her education was wasted because she sounded stupid. Yes, well, that whole uneducated thing, I'm gonna talk about that. I got some topics coming up talking about that Hawaii 1902. So I'm glad you said that. So when people say uneducated, they're talking about people who didn't. Uneducated to the left means anyone who didn't complete college. So that is uneducated to them. And I actually disagree with that concept. Even though I went to college and have a degree, that doesn't make me educated. What makes me educated is my just knowledge, everyday life knowledge, not book knowledge that you get from college. But again, I got a whole live coming on that one right there. So Hawaii, stay tuned. That's coming. Again, our next live is going to be next Wednesday. So just stay around. You'll see that. Hawaii says other countries will not follow behind any woman. Well, some countries do have women elected as, I believe it was New Zealand. They hired a woman, not hired, but elected a woman to the top of their offices. But also, other thing I'll say to balance that out, New Zealand had some of the strictest rules when it came to that virus a few years ago. Them in Australia were crazy. So you could take that for what it's worth. And yeah, see all the women stepping in. Nicole, what's going on? Casa Mia Interiors, Soul Art. Omar says, what about Trump talking about Puerto Rico and calling it trash and his sexual assaults? Your thoughts on that? Well, first of all, Omar, Trump did not call Puerto Rico trash. It was a comedian. I believe his name is Tony Hinchcliffe. He's the one who made a joke. He's literally a comedian. He made a joke about Puerto Rico being a pile of trash floating in the ocean. So it's literally a comedian. So any of you who is claiming incredulity over a comedian's jokes, you gotta, I don't know what to tell you. You gotta get over yourself. When Dave Chappelle was making jokes about the LGBTQ community, he got the same kind of backlash. You can't joke about them. You can joke about anything. The purpose of comedy is to take things that most people take seriously and laugh at them. That's the purpose of a comedian. That's a comedian's job, is to come to a place, take all the shit that everybody's all uptight and serious about, and then talk about it and make it funny and make people laugh at it. The problem that we have in society today is people are so fucking soft that now they're claiming offense when a joke gets told about something that they hold dear. I doubt there's anything you could tell any group you could tell a joke about that I wouldn't laugh. When I watched Dave Chappelle and he made jokes about the LGBTQ, I laughed. Now, I'm not part of their community, but it was funny. If he makes jokes about black people, I'm laughing. Chris Rock has a famous skit called I Love Black People and I Hate N-Words. It's from like the 90s, so like late 90s, probably 30 years ago. And it's funny because the things in there are funny. And he's taking things that we black people say about amongst each other, about other black people all the time, and he made jokes about it. That's funny. So I have no sympathy for any of you who either is seriously or you are claiming to be offended by anything that a comedian says. So miss me with that nonsense, especially those of you who are males. All right, males, we're supposed to have emotional control. I understand if a woman maybe gets upset about a joke, maybe a little bit, because women are more emotional. But I do not want to hear a man claiming incredulity or offense because somebody told a joke about a certain group. Like nonsense. Miss me with that. Omar, your other question is his sexual assaults. I only heard about one sexual assault case, and it's a very questionable case if you actually know the details of it, Omar. It doesn't sound like you do, because you even just said Trump talked about Puerto Rico and called it trash, which he didn't. So you started out your question by saying something that's not actually true. So your beliefs are based in falsehoods. I would suggest you go get the right information, which you don't have. Official Mark Triola said, Tiroia says, these movies like Woman King and Black Panther subconsciously screw society up. Yeah, they're nonsense. They're movies, though. People should know that. Black Panther army was led by women. Nobody believes. No black person believes that. Soul said, was it Trump or a comedian that called it trash? It was a comedian at a Trump event. And he didn't call it trash. It was a joke. It was literally a joke. He didn't say, hey, Puerto Rico's trash and walk off the stage. It was literally a joke. He's a comedian. Comedians tell jokes. When did people start getting mad about jokes? That's crazy. Anyway. Moving on, we got One Race Alliance says, I don't think it screws society up. Shows that women as any person are capable of doing many things. No one should be pigeonholed into an ideology. Well, One Race Alliance, I don't know what part you were referencing when you put this comment, but God designed it man, woman, child. Man is in the lead. Woman is the helpmate. Child is subservient to both the man and the woman in that order. Man, woman, child. And if there is crisis, everybody will fall back into their roles. You won't see any woman kings. If there was a real war happening on American soil, you won't see a single woman on the front line holding the gun, risking her life to defend the country. Not one. And you damn sure won't see an army of women. That ain't happening. So Chrissy says, thank you for saying he was pushed out. We're being gaslighted to believe he humbly stepped down. Well, you're being lied to. It's not gaslighting. It just lied. He was forcibly pushed out after the debate. Everyone knew it. Yes. Joe Biden was pushed out. Everybody should understand that by now. Anybody who thinks Joe Biden was not pushed out, again, I got a bridge in Oklahoma to sell you for $10 million cash. Send it to my PayPal. Chrissy said Michelle could have won. Possibly. It would have been more competitive had she been running. Yes. And Saul R said Trump comes up with new controversial and inflammatory things every day. Well, see, that's part of his appeal because he knows how to keep everybody talking about him. That's called persuasion. He does it on purpose. There's a book called Win Bigly written by Scott Adams. He explained this. That Donald Trump knows how to keep his name in the headlines. He's been doing it for 40 years. People have been talking about Donald Trump since the 80s. That's not by accident. He knows how to keep people talking about him. He's not doing it accidentally. He's doing it on purpose. Chrissy said J.D. Vance resonated with voters where Kamala seemed disingenuous. Well, J.D. Vance is next in line because Trump only has 4 more years. J.D. Vance is going to probably be the nominee for 2028 for the Republicans. If I had to bet that now, I would say him. Chrissy says, also think that I'm talking to silence people didn't help her. Most people don't like adults speaking like that. It's authoritarian. You also remember what she said with the swipe of my pen. Yeah, I do remember the swipe of the pen thing. Good point, Chrissy. I forgot about that, but you're right. I do remember with the swipe of my pen thing. But the I'm speaking thing, well, a lot of black women co-sign that. I saw it on social media when it happened. The problem is, I'm not even saying that she's wrong for speaking. I'm saying that it's funny. Because coincidentally, the more she spoke this year, the worse she looked. So it's funny. She wanted to speak in 2020, but the more she spoke this time, she looked bad. And Christy says the comedian wasn't speaking about people. There's actually a huge crisis in Puerto Rico. Right. Exactly. The joke was based on current events. The current event in Puerto Rico, there's a huge crisis of them getting rid of the trash. That was what the joke was about. I think people understood the joke, but again, with Trump, they do this every time with Trump. Anything related to Trump, they take it and they dissect it literally and they try to make it into some type of scandal. The problem is that doesn't work on Donald Trump. They've been trying it on him for 10 years. It doesn't work. The mainstream media does not learn. They keep trying to do the same thing with him and he keeps failing, yet they keep trying it again. They simply don't learn. They're slow learners. So hopefully none of you are slow learners. That's why we did all this. So tell you all what the future looks like. I am traveling on Monday and Tuesday next week. I do these lives usually every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern. I'm traveling Monday and Tuesday, so I won't be doing lives those days. And Wednesday, I'll be back, not only on all these platforms, YouTube, X, Rumble, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Is that everybody? YouTube, X, Rumble, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Yes. I'll also be back on TikTok. My suspension is lifted Wednesday morning on TikTok. I think it's around 8:40 a.m. So I'll probably start my live around that time just to make sure I can get the time in. I get the whole TikTok audience back. And TikTok is a very active audience when I do my lives. So TikTok has been pushing my stuff to the front, the For You page. So whatever app you are following me on right now, please follow me on all the others. So if you're on YouTube, make sure you follow me on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, make sure you subscribe to me on YouTube. I got to tell y'all this because I learned my lesson with TikTok. I got a bunch of people, who watch me on TikTok, but they didn't follow me on anywhere else. So they haven't been able to get these messages, the last couple of days. So make sure you follow me on more than one place. Let's diversify here. And I'll tell you all once I start sending out my text messages again and my email list, I'll give you all other places. My Twitter is just my name, Dre All Day. Chrissy, go to my profile. You'll see the post that I put up on Instagram this morning. It has I just screenshotted that from Twitter, so you'll see it. So Twitter, AKA X. If you just go to my Instagram profile, Chrissy, who asked that question, just click on that post that I did this morning. You'll see it. It says Dre Baldwin, and right under it is my screen name, Dre All Day on X. On any app, folks, I got different screen names on different ones because I couldn't get the same screen name everywhere. Just type my name in. You type my name in on YouTube. I'm easy to find. I got literally 13,000 videos. On Rumble, I'm not that active right now. On X, my name is Dre All Day. I just said LinkedIn, type in my name, Dre Baldwin. Facebook, it's Work on Your Game University. It's my business page, not my personal page. Instagram is Dre Baldwin, and TikTok is Work on Your Game. So follow me on TikTok, Work on Your Game. I think if you go on TikTok and type in my name, it might come up. But let me see. Actually, I should check that. I'm going to see if you type in my name on TikTok, I actually come up because I might and I might not. So I'm going to type in Dre Baldwin on TikTok and see if I come up. Yeah, I came up. So if you type in Dre Baldwin on TikTok, I'll come up. So my screen name is Work on Your Game. But if you type Dre Baldwin, I'll come up because my name is underneath it. So that's where it's at. I will be live again next Wednesday. My next live is going to be Wednesday next week, around 8:40 a.m. That's when my suspension gets lifted off TikTok. So I'll get continuity back. 8:40 a.m. Wednesday is going to be my next live stream. But I put out content every day. So you're following me, wherever you're following me, you'll still see plenty of material. I got a lot. And what else? My daily show is called Work on Your Game. Comes out every day on Apple and Spotify. Some of y'all call those podcasts. I call my show a masterclass. It is called Work on Your Game. We have over 3,000 episodes of the show. Let me show you what it looks like. So where y'all listen to podcasts at? Spotify or Apple? I'll show you both apps. So where's my show? So I'm going to find my show on Spotify. So it's coming. There it is. All right. So my show is called Work on Your Game. Scroll back up to the top here. Comes out every single day. It's called Work on Your Game. And it says discipline, confidence, and I can't see the rest of the title. But today's episode was episode number 3,100. All right, so we have over 3,000 episodes of this show. It's a daily show. It's called Work on Your Game. The episodes are on YouTube. They come on the audio apps, audio. No, Audible too. Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, all the other places you listen to podcasts. Y'all know where to find that stuff. That show comes out every single day. So if you want to learn more from me, you can get it there. And workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where we have all of our programs, all of our coaching programs. If you would like to have me as your direct coach, it happens at workonyourgameuniversity.com. So my next live is going to be next Wednesday. Y'all got that? My show comes out every day, Apple, Spotify. Y'all got that? Follow me on all the other apps. I'm on every social media app you have. I'm on it. Just look my name up. My Twitter is at Dre All Day for any of you, or Twitter/X is Dre All Day. I got a different name on every platform. But look my name up. Just type in Dre Baldwin. I am hard to not find. I'm easy to find. I'm public everywhere. Everything I put out is on the record. Everything I put out is public. I got a track record on all the stuff that I'm saying here. Nothing's new. It is new, but it's not new. That's the way I would say it. So everybody have a great Friday, great weekend, great start to your next week. You'll still be hearing from me, even though I won't be live. And I will be live absolutely next Wednesday. Y'all ready? Have a great day. We out here.